Well, hello everyone, and thank you very much for coming to my talk. My name is Oliver Scott Curry, and I'm Research Director for kindness.org and an affiliate of the School of Anthropology at the University of Oxford. My question today is, how many morals are there? And more importantly, what are they? There's been no shortage of attempts to answer that question over the centuries. Plato argued that there were 4 virtues, Aristotle upgraded that to 12, the ancient Egyptians tried to avoid the 42 sins of Mart, Judaism distilled 613 commandments into the famous 10, and Christianity went further and distilled those into 2. Catholicism, meanwhile, re-expanded the moral space and said that there were 7 heavenly virtues and 7 corresponding deadly sins. Taoism argues that there are 8 core moral values. The Khan of Ghana tried to live by the 20 laws of Abu Bentham argued that there was just 1 moral value. Gautier argued that you could distill chivalry into 10 points. The philosopher W.D. Ross argued that there were 7 prima facie moral duties. And more recent moral psychologists and anthropologists have argued that there are 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 core moral domains. The problem with these previous approaches is they're not based on any underlying theory. So the resulting lists are somewhat ad hoc, somewhat unsystematic. And it's difficult to know what to do with them, how to reconcile them, how to sift the good from the bad. To do so, we have to go back to first principles, and that's what I've done in my work. I've argued that morality is all about cooperation. It's a collection of rules that help us work together, get along, keep the peace, and promote the common good. The basic idea is that humans are social animals. We live together in social groups for millions of years, and during that time, we've faced a range of different opportunities for cooperation, and for mutually beneficial social interaction. And we've evolved and invented a range of ways of unlocking those benefits, of seizing the benefits of cooperation. And those different mechanisms, those different ways, strategies, norms, instincts, intuitions, customs, institutions, collectively are what philosophers and others have called morality. And I call this theory simply morality is cooperation. Now, I'm certainly not the first or only person to argue that morality has something to do with cooperation. It's a fairly mainstream view in the field at the moment. But even these contemporary accounts don't make use of the mathematics of cooperation, the theory of non-zero-sum games, to really flesh out this idea and fulfill its potential. If you do, you get something that looks like this. So evolutionary game theory tells us that there are at least 7 different types of cooperation that explain 7 different types of morality. Very briefly, kin selection explains why we love and care for our families and why we feel a special obligation to protect and provide for them. Mutualism explains why we form groups. There's strength and safety in numbers, why we value those groups and our membership in them, why we value unity, solidarity, and conformity, and why we resent those that weaken our groups by leaving them, especially if they go on to join a rival group. Social exchange explains why we feel obliged to return favors and punish those who don't. And conflict resolution explains why, instead of coming to blows, we engage in costly displays of our prowess, our heroism, our generosity, why we defer to the winners of those contests, why we divide disputed resources rather than fighting to monopolize them, and why we respect first possession, why we respect others' property. So far, so good. We've gone from one simple principle that morality is all about cooperation to 7 different types of cooperation and 7 different types of morality. And we can already see how this system can begin to mop up many of the different types of morality identified by those previous theories, whether that's bravery or the prohibition of theft, or things like forgiveness as a subcomponent of reciprocity. But what about the other things on those lists? What about filial piety and honor? Do we have to keep adding types of cooperation to this list in order to account for them? Maybe not. Consider instead the possibility that morality is a combinatorial system in which these 7 basic elements combine to form a large number of more complex moral molecules. Combinatorial systems are ubiquitous. Matter is a combinatorial system, DNA is a combinatorial system, language, cuisine, music are all combinatorial systems. And they are surprisingly powerful. In principle, with the right elements, these systems contain all possible combinations, all possible and therefore all actual combinations resulting more complex entities. And in practice, the numbers are astronomical. So for example, it's been estimated that the 118 elements of the periodic table can be combined to form over 13 million different compounds. Similarly, it's been estimated that a mere 6 notes of the musical scale can be combined to form over 30 trillion tunes. And it's mind-blowing to consider that armed simply with that handful of notes, you can generate every possible tune and therefore every actual tune. Or conversely, every tune that has ever been played or ever will be played is contained within that system somewhere. We wondered whether morality might be one of these systems too, in which these simple elements combine to form more complex moral concepts. And so as an initial test of whether morality is in practice a combinatorial system, my colleagues and I attempted to locate examples of second order moral molecules that combine 2 of these principles in the popular and professional literature. And the short answer is we succeeded. In each case, we found an example of the kind of complex moral concept that we were looking for. For example, if you combine the idea that you should help your group and that you should help your family, you get the idea that you should help your group by treating it as if it was your family. This is the motivating idea underlying fraternity, or as in the case of the picture here, the idea of blood brotherhood. If you combine the idea that you should help your family and that you should avenge injuries, you get the idea that you should help your family by avenging injuries against it. And this is the idea underlying blood revenge or blood feuds or vendettas. Another example, if you combine the idea that you should defer to your superiors and that you have special obligations to your kin, then you get the idea that you should show a special deference to senior kin. And this is exemplified in the idea of filial piety, which classically involves the extreme deference of a son to his father. Here's another nice example. If you combine the idea of helping your family and the principle of first come, first served, you get the idea of primogeniture, of inheritance going to the eldest child, typically the eldest son. If you combine the idea of helping your family with fairness, then you get the idea of gavelkind, the Anglo-Saxon practice of dividing inheritance equally between children, between sons, and so on. I'm not going to go through every one of these. You can check them out in the paper where we provide a summary. Just to give one more example, if you combine the idea that you should display your power by being brave and that you should avenge injuries, then you get the idea that you should display your bravery by avenging injuries, which is the motivating principle of honor. And so on through confession and turn-taking, restitution, modesty, mercy, munificence, arbitration, mendicancy, and queuing. So we started out with one simple principle that morality is all about cooperation. We saw that there's different types of cooperation that explain different types of morality. And now we've seen that we can take those different types of morality and combine them in the first instance into these 21 second order moral molecules. And we can use this system to explain more of the types of morality identified by those previous theories. But of course, we don't have to stop there. We can keep going. We can continue. We can look for examples of molecules that combine 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 elements. For example, if we combine the idea of honor, reciprocity, and heroism with the idea of family, then you get the concept of family honor, or isat, as they call it in Northern India. The mathematics of combinations tells us that there's 120 combinations in total. Similarly, so far we've been looking at positive moral elements, but each of the 7 types has an evil twin, has a corresponding uncooperative immoral element. So alongside love, loyalty, reciprocity, heroism, deference, fairness, and property, we have neglect, betrayal, cheating, cowardice, disrespect, unfairness, and theft. Again, those negative immoral elements can be combined. So for example, thieving from a superior is combined to form the idea of poaching. And again, there's 127 combinations of immoral elements. If we combine moral and immoral elements, for example, if we combine the idea of group loyalty, say sailors working together to overthrow their superiors, then we get the idea of mutiny. And if we combine positive and negative elements, we end up with a total of 2,186 moral molecules, and so on. If we relax the assumption that each element makes the same an equal contribution to the resulting molecule, then we get into the mathematics of permutations. So for example, if we say that friendship is 1 part mutualism and 1 part reciprocity, we might say that comradeship is 2 parts mutualism and 1 part reciprocity, whereas collegiality is 2 parts reciprocity and 1 part mutualism. The mathematics of permutations tell us that there are over 1 million rank ordered permutations of these 7 moral elements. And if we allow the elements to make equal combinations, if we allow ties, and that increases to 8.5 million possible combinations. And of course, if we allow elements to make any contribution they like, then the total possible number of combinations is infinite.
Okay, so as you've seen, morality is cooperation. The theory that morality is just the label we attach to our cooperative strategies can generate a huge number of genuine predictions about what kinds of moral phenomena to expect in the world. And it's the first and only theory to be able to do so. As such, it replaces those previous folk taxonomies of morals. Further, this framework can be used in a variety of ways. It can be used to, as we've seen, explain, incorporate, and reanalyze known morals, such as the types of morality identified by those previous theories. It can guide the search for as yet unknown or unappreciated morals in the literature, as we saw of the case of Gavelkind. And perhaps it can spur the creation of novel morals, novel combinations, novel examples of conceptual engineering, of moral concepts that we've yet to invent, yet to imagine. The theory also has some interesting empirical implications. Philosophers have argued for centuries about whether morality is innate or acquired, whether it's universal or particular. Well, why not both? Perhaps the elements are innate and universal, whereas the molecules are acquired and particular. Perhaps different peoples in different times and places have forged new combinations of moral concepts and created new moral systems. This offers a whole new perspective on explaining how and why morals vary across cultures.
Of course, it's not a prediction of the theory that all of these moral possibilities will be actualities. It's an empirical question to find out which of these many possible morals actually exist and try to explain why. And for that, we invite you to join us. We have set up a wiki periodic table of elements, starting with the 127 positive molecules. And we invite you to have a look, check it out, and try and help us fill in some of the remaining gaps. Okay, to conclude, I've argued that morality is all about cooperation. There are many types of cooperation, hence many types of morality. These simple moral elements combine to form a large number of complex moral molecules. And as such, morality's cooperation provides a principal predictive taxonomy of morals. Future research testing the many implications of the theory will help to place the study of morality on a more scientific footing. Any questions?